Okay, so I'm not going to go through this again because you've already heard it initially, but just to say that we are a small, private and independent company, and I myself have been specialising in China for more than 15 years, since 2000. I'm going to talk to you this afternoon about the free trade zones in China and how they can help you to develop your business based on our experiences there. So I'm going to, first of all, give you a brief introduction and overview of the free trade zones, and we'll then talk about the benefits of the zones, and we'll finish the presentation with a couple of short case studies. So the Shanghai Free Trade Zone pilot project was the first free trade zone, which was set up in September 2013 with the objectives of driving domestic economic reform and to promote trade and cross-border investment. Basically, by making it easier for inbound foreign investment into the FTZ, encouraging outbound investment from the FTZ, and the removal of more red tape to facilitate cross-border investment. So currently there are 4 free trade zones. Tianjin in the north, which is close to Beijing. Shanghai, which was the first free trade zone. Fujian Free Trade Zone, which is opposite Taiwan, and Guangdong Province, Guangdong FTZ in the south. The other 3 free trade zones actually began operations in March this year. So we're going to talk first of all about Shanghai Free Trade Zone. It was, until recently, just under 29 square kilometres and included the 4 bonded zones of Waigaoqiao Free Trade Zone, Waigaoqiao Bonded Logistics Park, Pudong International Free Trade Zone, and Jiangshan Free Trade Port Area. It's now expanded and includes Lujiazhu Financial District, which is here, which is the city's financial district and also home to the regional HQ of many multinational and Chinese companies, especially Chinese banks. And the expansion also includes the Jinqiao Development Zone and Jiangjiang High-Tech Park, all located in Pudong, and the area is now over 120 square kilometres, so it has basically quadrupled in size. Shanghai Free Trade Zone is still the biggest of all the free trade zones. Before the expansion, though, the free trade zone here was quite a distance from downtown Shanghai. A good hour by metro and even longer by car, depending on the traffic, for those of you who've had experience of Shanghai's traffic jams. So many companies actually have their registered business address in the free trade zone, but often have a physical location in downtown Shanghai because it's more convenient. So moving on to the other free trade zones very briefly. Guangdong is about promoting free trade with Hong Kong and Macau because of its location and proximity. Tianjin Free Trade Zone is looking at creating a world-leading innovation centre in the region, and the plan is to invest in high-value projects such as state oil reserves, optoelectronic industry, pharmaceutical industry, and new technologies. Last but not least, Fujian Free Trade Zone, which is intended to encourage more business cooperation with Taiwan by having free trade on goods and services. And Pingtan, which is part of the FTZ, which is a new industrial park, is actually targeting investment from Taiwan as well. Okay, so what are the benefits of the free trade zone to businesses? Well, first of all, foreign businesses and startups are now able to establish a wholly foreign-owned enterprise in China within shorter timeframes, and I'll talk a little bit later about how quickly that can be done now. In terms of setting up and registering a company, foreign investors are now subject to the same application procedures and requirements as domestic companies. So the process is now a one-stop shop, single application at a single location, provided that the business scope is not within the negative list for which special approval is needed. And I'll talk about the negative list in a couple of slides. In terms of tax, unfortunately, it remains the same tax rate as the rest of the country. Foreign companies and domestic companies pay the same, so no great incentives there. However, if you're a smaller company, there is a new policy. If you turn over less than 4,400 euros per month, you do not currently pay any tax. So actually, that's quite a great incentive for startups. New tax policies are being adopted to support innovative business models, and firms can choose to pay import taxes that apply to imported components, or on the other hand, that apply to finished components, for example. So they have the choice if they're located in the free trade zone. And one of the biggest features of the free trade zone is the special customs monitoring system, which basically means that goods are cleared faster, which is very beneficial in terms of cost and time, particularly for shipping and manufacturing companies and trading companies. Because it's a free trade zone, overseas shipments don't need customs clearance until a later stage, which simplifies the operation for logistic companies and reduces cost and complexities. And finally, on the financials, the free trade zones promote renminbi convertibility with relaxed administrative controls, which makes cross-border fund management easier for companies. And in terms of the negative list, the Shanghai Free Trade Zone has adopted the negative list approach, which is a positive signal that China is further opening up to foreign investors. Restricted sectors have been reduced from 190 to 120 as of April this year. And although the initial reforms benefited the banking and shipping industries because of the simplified custom processes and relaxed financial controls, other industry sectors where it hadn't been previously possible to own controlling stakes in those protected industries are now able to do so. And there are the sectors that now have relaxed policies. Further restrictions are being lifted as time goes on, and a few examples. Shanghai Free Trade Zone launched a pilot plan at the end of November last year that allows Chinese and foreign law firms in the FTZ to operate jointly based on cooperative arrangements. January this year, the China Ministry of Information and Industry Technology issued a pilot plan which mentioned that WOFIs were now allowed to participate in China's e-commerce market within the FTZ. So this change is very significant for foreign companies that were previously required to form joint ventures in this particular sector with local partners. Another example, game consoles, which are now allowed to be manufactured and sold domestically nationwide. And at the beginning of this year, the People's Bank of China announced the first batch of foreign banks approved to open free trade accounts for clients in Shanghai Free Trade Zone. Okay, so all very well, but how does it actually benefit you as a business? Well, first of all, it's much easier now to set up a company in China, faster process, it can be done within a month, and it's much cheaper and affordable for smaller businesses. And I'll talk about the cost when I go on to our first case study. For trading companies who are importing and exporting, it has financial and cash flow benefits in terms of the free trade within the free trade zone, not having to pay duty and VAT until the goods or materials actually leave the free trade zone itself. It's easy to set up a bank account now in the free trade zone, both company and a personal account, once you've registered your company, of course, and much less restriction on foreign currency. And there are now some very interesting cross-border trade benefits through the e-commerce platforms. So, for example, you can now sell your products via one of the approved Chinese companies or agents that have e-commerce sites or platforms, which basically works exactly the same way as if you were selling your products on eBay or Amazon. So the customer places the order, you organise the delivery, so you're effectively delivering directly to the end customer in China. The Chinese company or agent that has the e-commerce platform will deal with the sales, with the import process, with the payment, and also provide you with a platform to market and promote your products very cheaply. What it gives you is an understanding of the Chinese consumer behaviour and the type of products that they're interested in buying from your business. And it's a great way of testing the market before you actually commit to putting higher resources into developing your business in China, if you are in the sort of industry that can benefit from e-commerce business. So what about disadvantages? Well, no real tax advantages yet, as I said, but there is a tax advantage if you are a very small company, as I mentioned before. That is a disadvantage. If you are a general taxpayer and are paying 17% VAT, then your invoicing is strictly managed by the FTZ market. So effectively, you have to join one of the markets and you have to physically do your invoicing in the market itself and buy the equipment for that from that particular market. Which, of course, if you're located in downtown Shanghai, if you've got lots of invoices, it's not always convenient for the company. And the other thing is that the policies of the free trade zone are not stable and are subject to change or update frequently. But of course, I think that's the same as in most of China in any case. Okay, so moving on to the case studies now. The first case study is my business, actually. We have been established since 2004, always wanted to set up a presence in China. It's important because it will give us more credibility, it will give us a bigger profile. We knew that having a presence in China would attract more Chinese clients, and we hoped as well it will give us a profile in Europe and therefore attract more European clients. However, we're a small company, we don't have great resources, and although from time to time we kept revisiting the situation, it was very difficult to actually commit the cash to setting up a joint venture or a WFI in China before the free trade zones started. We always wanted to set up in Shanghai. Why? Because it is an important business centre. It's got a great buzz for anybody who has been. And when the Shanghai Free Trade Zone pilot project started, we immediately went to talk to the officials about how we could do it and what we needed to do. So, in the past, or before the Free Trade Zone, probably the cost of setting up a WFI, a wholly foreign-owned enterprise or a joint venture probably cost you in the region of 14,000 to 21,000 euros. You also had to put down registration capital. For a company of our size, $100,000 US, 15% of which had to be paid very soon after registering the company, and the balance within 2 years. So you can start to understand the actual cash resources that you had to put into it. Approval procedures then took 6 to 9 months if you were lucky, and very complex procedures, talking to different bodies within China, which is obviously why the legal fees were so high, because they coordinated the whole process. However, setting up in the free trade zone, it probably cost you about 25% in actual setting up costs. So you're talking probably 4,000 to 5,000 euros to actually set up, of which you pay the agent, you pay for an address in the free trade zone, which you have to pay on an annual basis. You pay for your seal, you pay for your licence, and then, even better, registration capital was abolished, so you no longer have to pay that immediately. Our registration capital is due in 2024, so hopefully by 2024 we're going to be a much bigger company and are going to be able to afford to pay our registration capital. Approval procedures takes around 1 month. You have a legal address contract, and it's all done on an online application. The hardest bit about it is getting your Chinese name approved. You have to put forward 30 different Chinese names that has to go in with your application, which of course can be quite difficult. If you have a name like Connect China, which isn't particularly unique, so we had to find 30 different connotations of Connect China. Unfortunately, the first 30 were thrown out, and we had to put another 10 in, which did slow down the process a little bit. So this is what we ended up with, Nai Te Hua, which basically means Net China, if I pronounce that correctly. But actually, it didn't matter so much what our Chinese name was, because we brand ourselves as Connect China Shanghai Company Limited, and what it meant was we just had to change the Chinese characters in our original logo to our new Chinese registered name. And this is just the sort of time scale of the registration of the company. So we submitted on the 1st of March last year. We got our business licence on the 14th of March, organisation code and taxation certificate on the 17th of March, seals on the 21st of March, bank opening application on the 21st of March, bank opening certificate on the 1st of April, and we were ready to go, which was great. So that's me and Pam. Pam is my joint venture partner of Connect China Shanghai Company Limited, and that's us at the Shanghai Free Trade Zone entrance. And as a result of our experiences, we now help companies to set up both actually inside and outside the free trade zone, because it's actually opened up the application process outside the free trade zone as well. So we help companies if they want to set up a WFI, JV, or just a representative office. And companies can also share our office, and we help them to develop the business faster in China through either virtual office, using our office as a hot desk, or having a permanent desk in our office with a member of staff. Which leads us on to case study 2, which was our first client that we helped to set up in the Shanghai Free Trade Zone. They manufacture a permanent creasing system for garments. They had been selling to China since 2001 through a Hong Kong distributor. But as the years went on, they realised that sales were dropping quite considerably, and they weren't sure what was happening. So we did some research. We arranged meetings for them in China with garment manufacturers, and very quickly discovered that there were counterfeit problems. And the suspicion was that the counterfeit equipment was actually also being sold by the Hong Kong distributor. So the UK manufacturer knew they had to move fairly quickly. They decided to set up their own trading company in Shanghai, terminated the distributor, the Hong Kong distributor agreement very quickly, and basically their whole process took 2 months to set up. It took an extra month because they needed an import and export license. Whilst the company was being registered, they recruited a Chinese national with experience from their industry sector. And within 2 months, their turnover was around £200,000, which is sort of pretty good from 0 to 6 months. They actually moved out of our office in December, moved into their own office next door, which was bigger because they had additional staff and they needed storage space. So basically, just to end the presentation, if you are currently doing business in China, then it really does help business develop faster if you set up a presence. And I think now, because of the free trade zones and the advantages that they can offer you as a company, really risks are much lower in terms of finance and resources. So our suggestion and recommendation would be, go, do it, give it a try, and good luck with your future business. And thank you.